Hey everybody out there in YouTube land, I'm John and I'm back with another video on my channel, Musings of a Marine. Hope everybody is doing well out there. Thank you for the new subscribers that I got from my last video. And I wanted to talk to something, again, kind of Philippines related today, but not necessarily. And this is about long distance flights. My wife and I will be heading towards Cebu here in, let's see, 2 months and 5 days. Yes, I'm counting it down. And hey, I'm already getting prepared for being in the Philippines just by being here in Redford, Michigan, because for the last 5 days, it's been in the mid to upper 80s, and I don't have any air conditioning in the house thanks to a serious storm Friday. So anyways, here it is, July 8th, and on July 3rd we had one doozy of a thunderstorm and no air conditioning since. So being prepared for it, but we got power in most of the house, thankfully, and that's why I'm able to do this video today. So anyways, but I try and take things lightly. Hey, you got to have a sense of humor, especially if you're going to spend time in the Philippines, much less live there. So but anyways, what I wanted to talk about is long distance flights. I love flying in airplanes. I love learning about airplanes. And because I do, I have some tips and suggestions for people that might be interested in how best to prepare yourself for flying to the Philippines or any country in that area. I'm not here to talk about passport requirements, visa requirements, the e-travel QR code that is necessary. All of that stuff may still apply. For me, going to the Philippines as an American citizen, all I need is my passport and the e-travel QR code. That's it. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. What I'm here to talk about more is flight selection and aircraft selection. And this does matter. And the older you get, the more it matters, because going back to 2002, the first time my wife and I flew to the Philippines, as opposed to now, needless to say, over the last 24 years, my body has changed. My back is not as good as it was then, and my backside, my butt, does not seem to have the padding that it once had. And this being the case, flight selection and airplane selection matters. So I'm going to get into some points about that. The last two trips that my wife and I made to the Philippines, we flew out of Toronto International Airport, or Pearson Airport in Mississauga, technically, which on surface didn't make a lot of sense, considering that here in Redford, the planes in Metro Airport, when they fly over my house, are actually coming in for a landing already. That's how close I live to Detroit Metro Airport. It's about a 20-minute drive. That's it. And it would be more logical to fly out of Detroit, and this time we will be. Now, I'm not here to endorse in any way any airline or aircraft company, but obviously I'm giving you my honest opinion from a good amount of experience. I've flown across the country and across, halfway across the world 8 times in my life. Twice because I was stationed in Okinawa for 2 years, as when I was active in the Marines, and 6 times to go to the Philippines with my wife. So I have a little bit of experience here about this, and so I'm going to give you my best recommendations. This time we are flying out of Detroit. The last 2 times we flew over there, we flew out of Toronto the first time in 2018 simply because it was the cheapest airfare. And my my mother-in-law had passed away, and we wanted to get over there as quick as possible. And with the direct flight from Toronto to Manila, that certainly made that happen. But it was the cheapest way to go. And we wanted to check out PEL or Philippine Airlines just to see what it was like. And it was a brutal flight, needless to say. We were in that aircraft from the time we boarded in Toronto to the time we got out of it in Manila. It was over 16 hours. And let me tell you, by the time we got there, my butt was killing me so bad it wasn't even funny. I would get up. Thankfully, we sat in the last row of the aircraft, and I'm going to recommend that you do that, believe it or not, even though you don't get the best, smoothest flight per se. But I'll explain why in a little bit. So I would get up, stand up, and stand around the bathroom and what have you. We were flying on a Boeing 777 at that point. And so that's what we did. And the reason we ended up in the back of the plane is because we wanted to sit together. Our travel agent had us in both in aisle seats across from one another. We wanted to sit together. But it worked out very advantageous because in a Boeing aircraft, it gets narrow in the back. So when Diana and I sat in the back row on the left side of the plane, rather than it be 3 seats there was only 2. And therefore, I had all this extra room along the bulkhead of the plane, or the wall, if you're a civilian. And I could just store my stuff there, which gave my feet all the room they needed under the seat in front of me. And my wife then had the aisle seat, and I only had to climb over her if I wanted to get up and stretch and move around or use the bathroom. So that was an advantageous thing. Now, the second time we flew out of Toronto, we did it again on PEL, and yes, it was a nonstop flight. It was not something that we necessarily wanted to do. Quite frankly, the only reason we did it was because my niece Jessica was flying also over there on the same day, and we thought it'd be better her not flying by herself, or in her early 20s at the time, and kind of be her chaperone, if you will. And her parents felt much more comfortable with that as well, so, as you could understand. So I actually sat in Jessica's seat, some few rows up from where my wife and Jessica sat. But this way she was with somebody she knew, and it worked out better that way. But we were on a Airbus 350 this time. And unfortunately, we weren't able to get the last row on the plane, but it wouldn't have mattered if we had. And why? Because in the back of an Airbus 350, it's still 3 rows deep on both sides of the plane and 4 rows in the middle. And so even on the way back, we were close to the back of the plane, but I still had to have a guy sitting to my right in the aisle seat, and therefore every time he got up, I got up so I could stretch. The flight there, thankfully, I was so exhausted before leading up to that flight that I slept probably 5 of the 15 some odd hours we were in the air anyways. But nonetheless, by the time I got to Manila, my butt was hurting so bad I didn't want to sit down. And then when we get to Iloilo, we get picked up in our jeepney, which now has thankfully been kind of retired. It's an old piece of junk now, but nonetheless, they would always want me to sit in the front of it because I had the longest legs, and that's where all the leg room was. And so I would do so, but I hated it because the padding in the seat of our jeepney is pretty much worn out, and it was a brutal ride from the airport to our house in Haro because I just didn't, my butt's already killing me as it is, and now I got to sit on in a seat that hardly has any padding. And that brings me to another point. The padding in seats aren't the greatest. When we flew there in 2014, we flew on Cathay Pacific, and their seating, the seats in it were terrible for padding. It was awful. And, and so I've actually, starting on that flight, learned to not use my neck pillow for my neck. No, I would sit on it instead to give my butt some relief, but it wasn't enough. So what I'm leading up to in that is, you want to bring, if you're my age and you have this issue like I do, bring a seat cushion with you. You are allowed to do that. Now, I don't ride business, and quite frankly, in some ways I wouldn't want to, because you really don't get a good view out the window, and I love having a window seat on short flights. And so we're gonna ride coach, and obviously that's their economy, as they call it, and that's more affordable, obviously. Your seats in economy class are typically 17.1 to 17.3 inches wide. So you got to make sure that if you buy a seat cushion to sit on, that it's going to fit on that seat, and you can still get your seatbelt around you. Okay, so I am going to order a inflatable seat cushion that I can put in there that's going to comply with those measurements, and sit on that and hopefully make the flight more enjoyable. Now, on this flight coming up, we're going to be flying on United out of Detroit Evans Terminal. Used to be called the North Terminal and the Smith Terminal. Now it's the Evans Terminal. And our first flight is going to be on a Boeing 737-8 from Detroit to Denver. I've already got it arranged for a window seat. It's not a long flight, only 3 hours. And this way I can see out the window and, hey, maybe get a good view of the Rocky Mountains as we're coming in there. I love that kind of stuff. And I study the aircraft. Now, some people don't have a good attitude about Boeing, but I'm going to explain to you in a minute here why I prefer them. Not only that, I kind of like to support the American-made aircraft. Yes, Boeing's had their issues, but those planes that had a problem got grounded until Boeing fixed them, and rest assured our government is watching them very closely to make sure they comply. The MAX aircraft was the one they were most worried about. Well, our flight from Tokyo to Cebu is on a 737 MAX 8, which was one of the planes they had a problem with. But you know what? I don't care what kind of plane you fly on. There is always that slim chance that there's going to be a problem, and yes, you could crash to your death. Not to be morbid, but let's face reality. The 747 was considered to be one of the safest aircraft ever built, and guess what? Some of them have crashed and burned too. So I'm not worried about any of that, quite frankly. What I'm worried about is what's going to make me and Diana comfortable, and what's going to be the least amount of time that I'm sitting on my derriere, so it'll feel better. So we've broken up the trip this time. 3 hours to Denver, no problem. We get about an hour layover in Denver, that's it. And then we're going to board a Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner and fly that to Tokyo. Now, why do I mention this aircraft? Because from all the videos I've watched on it and the research I've done, it is probably the best plane to fly on for long distance flights. Now, you still need your A350s and you still need your 777s, because the 787 Dreamliner cannot fly as far as those planes can. It's not as big. It doesn't hold as many passengers either. The seating is 333 as opposed to 343 in economy class on the bigger planes. But like the 777 in the back of the plane, it gets more narrow. So again, Diana and I have set our seats up to be in the back of the plane and getting the window and aisle seat together where it's just two seats, giving us more room for our stuff, more room for our legs, and that's it. When you get on a plane that big, folks, the ride is pretty smooth anyway, even if you're in the back. Now, some people would say, well, I don't like to sit in the back of the plane because that's where the bathroom is, and maybe you don't want to hear it flushing, or you don't want to be disturbed by all the passengers that are going back there to use the facilities. Well, on the 787-9, there are no bathrooms in the back of the plane. You have to walk up more towards the wing area to get to them, which is maybe not the most convenient thing, but what I love about it is it gives me much more room in the back of the plane just to move around and stretch and hang out without bothering anybody, without people thinking I'm in line to the bathroom when I'm not. All of these types of things. So believe me, I've researched all of this. I want this to be the most comfortable flight we ever had, because now by the time we take off, I'm going to be 63 years old. That's coming up here very shortly. So therefore, I thought about all this, and that's why we're taking United, and that's why we're taking the flight we are. It'd be quicker to fly Delta to Seoul and then Seoul to Cebu. It'd be quicker and not much more costlier either. But again, we'd be on that A350, and I don't want to do that. Plus, the A350 only typically has one bathroom in the back, where the 777 had two. More convenient that way. And I just thought I'd bring all of this up. So 3 hours to Denver, 12 hours and 20 minutes to Tokyo instead of that long 15, 16-hour flight from Toronto to Manila. Breaking that up, 3-hour layover in Tokyo, and then we board the 737 and fly to Cebu, and again, I get my window seat. Even though we'll be flying it at night, and I probably won't be able to see much anyways. So that's basically what I wanted to talk about today, everybody. It does matter. Getting to the Philippines when you're going to fly there for a vacation is exciting, and some of you might just be worried about what's the cheapest way to get there, or you might be worried about how fast I can get there. But as you age, believe you me, it matters how you're doing it. Breaking up the flight this time is going to give my backside much more of a break, and we are going to be flying on the most superior commercial aircraft that there is right now. Now, one last thing. Why is the 787 the best? There's a few reasons. Number one, the windows are bigger. Hey, I like to look out the window, right? I'm going to love that part of it. Secondly, the mood lighting. They actually adjust the lighting in the aircraft to simulate certain times of the day to prevent jet lag. The airplane is simply designed better to prevent jet lag. And also, they increase the humidity on this plane over the other ones. I have a problem with dry mouth under any circumstances, but on a plane particularly, where my mouth gets very dry. It gets very dry on the plane. They've increased the humidity in the 787 to help prevent that, which also helps prevent jet lag. So, just thought I'd bring those things up for anybody who watches this video and is going to do a long distance flight, whether it be to the Philippines, Japan, South Korea, China, Thailand, whatever. These are some things you might want to consider, and especially as you get older like me and your body just can't handle it like it used to. So that's it. Thanks for tuning in. I'm John. Appreciate everybody who watches my videos. God bless, take care, and as always, Semper Fi.